the businesses. Focus this morning is on the construction industry. Let's see exactly what is happening there. How have they fared? And joining us is the chairman of the Lagos State chapter of the Nigeria Institute of Architects. Hello, sir. Good morning, Mr. Fitzgerald Umar.
Hey, Mr. Fitzgerald Umar.
Hello, Tommy Singh. How are you?
Good morning.
I guess you're keeping
Good to have
safe.
you this morning. I'm very well, thank you. And
Best to keep safe. And if you look at the social distance between us in the studio, you see that we are also doing well. Kemi is here with me this morning. Kemi,
hello, good morning.
To our guest. Mr. Fitzgerald, Kemi
Good
says
morning.
hi.
Hello, Kemi. Hi, how are you?
Mr. Fitzgerald, Kemi says hi.
Hello, Kemi.
Work at the beginning of the ease of the lockdown. You know, the moment we all went home, you went home as well. But in a few weeks after, the government quickly allowed the people in the construction industry, architects, engineers, all of them to go back to work. So I must say, how have you fared so far? Can you hear us? Mr. Mar? Fitzgerald? Can you hear us? There's a little bit of a audio problem there. I sincerely do hope that he can hear us. Okay.
Fitzgerald.
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you. Yes, I can. Yes, I can. Hello? Hello?
For that quick disruption. Hello, Fitzgerald. Can you hear us? Can you hear us?
Hello?
Hello, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
How have you fared in your industry?
I can hear you.
How have you fared in your industry since the COVID lockdown and then after the ease of the lockdown? Just talk to us. How have you fared?
Okay, you know, the construction industry is usually the first hit whenever there's an economic crisis. And unfortunately, we had a public health crisis that led to an economic crisis. And usually the first thing is the construction industry, because people want to be safe, people want to kind of like keep they're unsure of what is going to happen in the economy. So oftentimes projects stop, sometimes projects are delayed, and sometimes projects are reviewed. So during the lockdown, nothing happened in the industry, apart from those that had projects that would work offline and all that. So coming out of the lockdown, the economy is beginning to pick up a bit, and gradually, and people are beginning to go back to work. And you also see that the guidelines for the construction industry is also making it difficult for things to start the way it used to be. We have a number of workers to be on site at a particular time.
Mm-hmm.
Also, some clients are also a bit apprehensive of what is going to happen. So some are not starting their project again. Some are hoping to and watching to see what is going to happen in the economy. But for me, it's a bit painful, because this is an industry which contributes about 3.2 to 6% to the country's GDP.
Mm-hmm.
So to see this public health crisis coming into our industry is further, making it more difficult for this industry to contribute what it's supposed to contribute.
Mm.
So we are hoping that the government can kickstart the economy again, so that the construction industry can open properly.
Now, we have gone so far.
Thank
Let's
you.
talk some numbers. We heard this morning that importers, just looking at the import sector, now importers have lost close to about 15 trillion naira. That's what they've lost when it comes to this COVID period, just between the COVID pandemic from February 26 till date. They said they've lost about 15 trillion naira. Let's talk about how this has affected the finance, of the construction companies. Let's talk about the employers of labor, because I know you employ both professional, non-professional, layman, and all of that. How has it affected the numbers? Are you there? Yes. Fitzgerald, we're waiting. Are you there? Are you there? All right, I think for some reason this morning
Above, we know that China, which happens to be the genesis of COVID-19, happens to have a whole lot
you share that
to
same
do.
opinion with Donald Trump.
Has a whole lot to do when it comes to construction.
Yes.
If we can see our constructions, and even in Nigeria, in Africa, we see that Chinese people, Chinese has a whole lot of things work to do. So I think that definitely, looking at the situation of things, there will definitely be a huge disruption due to COVID-19. And looking at the fact that China has to be plays a big role when it comes to construction in Nigeria.
All right, Fitzgerald, are you here with me? You can hear me now.
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, so what I was saying is I want to look at in numbers. How has it affected you? Now, a lot of companies are going to lose staff simply because of COVID-19. And I know that the construction industry employs both the professionals and the layman and the people they call the job man. And they also employ people from the informal sector who come in, do one or two projects and go back to their various offices or to their various businesses. How has it affected you in numbers?
Okay, in terms of the construction industry, it's going to affect every firm or company in different ways, depending on who your clientele is. I'll give you an example. For, like I mentioned last week at a program, I said this time is actually the time to renegotiate with your staff, to instill confidence. Because if you remember in 2008, during the economic crisis all over the world, after a while, the economy picked up again. So oftentimes, when you don't rethink and you just lay off staff without remembering that the economy is going to pick up again, it will be difficult for you to be able to get good hands when you begin to get these good projects again. So the first thing is, you look at, you do your projection, you do your numbers. For us, we're a bit lucky. Some of our projects are still ongoing, and I think the same thing is with other clients. Also other firms. So for me, it's really not a time to begin to lay off staff. I think it's a time to re-strategize and to rethink, because I'll tell you, from December, January next year, things will come back to normal. Though we might live with the experience we have now, but it would really not make sense to begin to lay off staff and all that.
Now, but for the projects, line,
you have time.
Some projects of our railway were supposed to last, and they were supposed to hand over at the last meeting, which I was personally there. They were supposed to hand over that project in April. But as of last week, the news breaking out says they're going to finish the
latest by December, which means that with government, there has been some measure of, a shift in what should be the timeline. But when it comes to private organizations, not everybody gets the opportunity to work with government. When it comes to private organizations, it's a totally different ballgame. You're saying negotiate with your staff. What about negotiating with your business partners, your clients? Is that something that you think will not affect? Because a lot of people will just say, if you can't deliver us at the dates that you were promised,
please return my money and all of that.
Okay, for that, thank you. That in different contracts, there are conditions in it. There's something that is called force majeure. It's something that's unprecedented. Nobody knew it was going to happen. So there are some contracts presently that how much time did we lose in the during the COVID time? Is it 2 months? Is it 3 months? So we're going to get an extension for 2 to 3 months. So those are the kind of things that are applied. That's why I said a couple of people are renegotiating, re-strategizing. Then for the government, I think it's the same thing because nobody saw COVID coming. Then when you talk about the CCC, the Chinese company, well, I think that might not be it might really not be something that is applicable because if you look at it, they are a Chinese company. Every country would want to renegotiate with the country to like find out that most of their workers come from China, and everybody knows that that's where the virus started from. So everybody wants, like in the first instance, they want to play safe and like, okay, what do we do? Are we sure we are willing to begin to deal with these people? Are we sure we are not going to renegotiate with another country? So these are things the government will have to look at because we need to look at the public health specialists in Nigeria. We need to advise the government and, look at all that, look at the implication of still dealing with this Chinese company because most of their professionals still come from China and we all know what it is. So it might not be as easy as it's going to be for the private companies, but for the government who have far-reaching business with Chinese would want to have a rethink and begin to look at how best to deal with them. So for our railway infrastructure, all those the bridges, all those the airports, those ones might take some time before before they restart again because I can tell you the government would want to renegotiate. They want to look at the implication again. So, but when you talk about the private sector, what the clients in the private sector want to look at is between now and the next quarter, what will happen? Are we still going to get in our receivables? Will the oil price go up? How does that affect our income? So when they look at their projection and they say that, okay, we can still go ahead projects, they will go ahead. So, but for the government is the big client and a big player and will take decisions that will be beneficial to the citizens, and they want to limit their exposure. So that's it.
All right. So what? It's enough we talk about the challenges we encountered since the inception of COVID-19 in the construction industry. What opportunities have come during this period?
Okay, thank you very much. Like I mentioned that I always say that in every situation there are opportunities. It's just for us to sit back and not focus too much on the challenges or what the issues are. For me, COVID exposed a lot of our shortcomings in the country. It shows that we have housing shortage. Right now, we have over 20 million housing deficit in Nigeria. COVID showed it, exposed it greatly. Because if you go to Lagos, if you visited parts of Lagos, on the island, most of these abandoned buildings, people were using it as shelter. It clearly shows that a lot of people really don't have homes where they stay. So it shows that. Then another thing is our public sector. Imagine us looking for makeshift places, building tents, meaning that we really don't have that strong facility to be able to deal with a pandemic. So I see opportunities in the health sector. I see opportunities in the housing sector. This is actually the time for government to invest. Then another thing is poor infrastructure. It also further exposed it. So if you ask me, there's an opportunity in the housing. This is really the time for government to really change whatever policies they have in housing to open it up more. Then two, public health. Public health is really, 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 really below bar. Now government has the opportunity to open up build more hospitals, open up more healthcare facility, primary healthcare. So meaning that the construction industry is also going to thrive on all these other areas: housing, health, infrastructure. So I see that the economy, once the economy picks up, these are areas, meaning that there will still be jobs in the construction industry, because the architects, the engineers, the quantity surveyors, the contractors, the Julius Bergers, and all that will still continue to work. So for me, it's just that the government needs to recalibrate our economy and begin to look at the sectors to begin to focus more on.
All right. You spoke on recommendation at the side of the government. What about in the side of the construction industry? What they should
investors, private organizations.
So what's your recommendations for them?
Okay, in terms of the private, the housing sector has been in the hands of the private developers. So now, what I think, there are a lot of private developers that have funds, but need government to handle infrastructure so that they can invest more. Because right now, some are a bit apprehensive. But if governments can now invest in the infrastructure, all these sites and services, I give you an example, like in the Lekki areas, if governments can open more roads, start drainages in some other area like this, these alternative roads that the Lagos State government wants to now build beside Lekki Peninsula. If this road is done that links to the VGC, I can tell you development will start. A lot of private players in the housing sector are also looking at the government to be able to help them to open most of these other areas. They have their funds to invest, but there's little to which they can do once it comes to power, once it comes to road, these are areas that they're high investments. So if governments can also look at, government is the owner of land, and land is a major cost element once it comes into housing. If government can further say, okay, we are discounting houses, land, or give lands at low or reduced cost to some of these private investors, and that are real, and they are sure that they really want to invest in housing, I can tell you this will help a lot. The private sector are actually waiting. We, the professionals in the built environment, we already know what is happening. Some people are already waiting, are renegotiating. Everybody is rethinking the way they do their business, even in our offices. Some people are now working offline. So once government can do this little bit for the private sector, I tell you, we will get there.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fitzgerald Umar. When I saw Umar, from which part of the country are you from?
I'm actually one Nigeria. I'm
from Imo State, but I have roots in some other area, so that's why.
And I'm wondering, the Umar, it's Umar from the names with an A, not an R. Not an R. Okay. So I'm asking. It was confusing for me, and I needed to just ask where your cultural heritage or where your roots lie. You want to explain?
I know I'm from Imo State, but I also know that some roots came from somewhere to somewhere. So, like I always tell police, for a symposium discussion in the future.
Thank you very much
for joining us today.
We look forward to having you some other time. That was Mr. Fitzgerald. We're looking at on the screen there. He joined us via Zoom on the Bumper Breakfast today. But we'll take this last break. Coming back, we're talking community report. And let's just talk about COVID-19 and your reaction to it.